so for the Disability of Education Improvement Act, how would I guess we have to make sure that we have open communication. We have to, right now at all the schools, there are compliance monitors. So every school now currently has that, where they make sure, someone in each school makes sure that that school is in compliance. So they are a check and balance type of thing. So that's happening now, which is something new and current. Let's see. I took little notes for each thing. So there still needs to be a lot of work done, but I would be on top of it. I would try to have open communication, which is really important, and make sure that, you know, parents could contact me and we could discuss it. I also had an idea, I had a couple of ideas that I was hoping, now that every school, the elementary is where most of my expertise was in, and I was hoping that, I know we started to have like different schools specialize in different areas. For example, Wolf Pit School has the autistic, and have, so that the person who was in
10 seconds.
Faculty that was running it would be an expert, and they would focus on the students in that classroom. So they'd have specialties in different schools, and then the kids would be mainstreamed out from those classes. But the teacher would be, you know, they would be in a classroom, but of that expertise, so that they would get all the accommodations that they need.
Thank you so much. By the way, don't feel like you have to fill all 2 minutes. I know it's hard.
Oh, good.
Jason, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. So as Mr. Barber said, 2008 and 2012, the CREC reports were completely ignored. The board has done a phenomenal job in with the 2015 report. This MedPAC Council has been formed. There's also been a committee, an ad hoc committee with the Board of Ed. I think that's actually going to be something that turns permanent to assist in communication as well. There are a couple other things that we can do right now as well to ensure that these legal obligations are met. Again, communication is big, but we have to ensure that we continue with the next steps of the CREC report and their recommendations. We also have to ensure that evaluations are being done and completed in full, and we have to make sure that evaluations are also being done in accordance with the IDEA law. So those are my recommendations at this point. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Diana?
Okay, first I forgot to mention, single mom, and my son's a junior at Norwalk High. I'm currently the president of Norwalk High also. So I'm a mom, not a politician. This is all new to me. However, anybody that knows me knows that if the problem arises, I will ask questions, I will talk, I will do whatever I need to do in order to help someone get it done. So I keep hearing about deadlines not being met. That's a big thing. Laws, children not getting the benefits they should have. But this is a room full of families. Like I said, I'm a mom. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what's going on. I have strong members here that if I do get into office, that I can ask questions. I can direct myself to the right place and make sure I ask those questions behind closed doors in the board.
Thank you. I'm going to have you guys hold your applause, just in interest in moving it forward. Brian, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you. So interesting, I was looking at historical data for the city. The earliest financial report we have online actually used to track SPED, numbers of SPED students. Interestingly enough, throughout the 90s and early into 2000, it was about 3%, and they had forecast for the next 5 years about 3 or 4%. So what happened? Well, IDEA came along in 2004 and numbers exploded, and the actual numbers started creeping over 10% as early as 2006. And as Mr. Barbas reminded us, we had incredible chaos and turmoil on the board throughout those years. Today we're at 14%. So, you know, for years we were definitely underwater. We were struggling. We were drowning. Paying attention to the CREC report was just the beginning. It prompted us to get more significant funding so that we could tackle these issues. The cost curve on SPED was getting to a point where, you know, we were at a growth rate where we're going to have to start cannibalizing other programs, sports, band. It was just unsustainable, double-digit growth. So part of the things that have been put in are bringing in more insourcing rather than expensive outsourcing, and only where we can practically do it and deliver the services that are needed. We did meet the thresholds that the state expects, and the systemic complaint was dismissed, although there were a handful of issues that they identified as ones that we needed to fix with some handling and stuff. So, you know, realizing that, you know, our goal is perfection, and that is a lofty goal. At the same time, we realize that we're imperfect, and we have to keep improving upon these systems of internal control. The anecdotal examples that you can bring forward to the board are very helpful. At the end of the day, this is a board with a lot of responsibilities, and we need to set up proper systems that are checked so that we can hold our administrators accountable to delivering the services that our children are required by law. Thank you.
Okay, you must have timed that because you came in exactly at 2 minutes. That's impressive. Exactly. Okay, Erica.
So the question was about compliance, and I'm going to get very tactical in my answer. I believe it should be top-down accountability. So we are shortly going to go into a negotiation with a new superintendent. As part of that negotiation, the contract will likely include a bonus structure tied to priority outcomes. The current superintendent's priority outcomes are around development of a roadmap as it relates to special ed. I would like to see priority outcomes specific to special ed tied to compliance, because I think that we've done the right thing in terms of putting the structure into place, but the follow-through is where we're lacking. I'd like to see, from a compliance perspective, that all of our service providers are keeping logs of the hours, and that those hours are itemized at the shared services versus direct services level. I'd like to see that the time that elapses between a referral for an evaluation and the actual evaluation taking place and the report being published, that gap closed. So I think the answer to compliance is really holding the superintendent accountable and making sure that we have data and that we have trained our teachers to collect that data in a way that allows us to provide a benchmark that he can then build on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
To answer this question, I think you have to understand the role of a board member. So we are not running the school district day to day. That's what we pay a superintendent to do, and that's what we hire him for. We don't hire and fire individual people. We don't rule on special education cases. We don't micromanage. Our duties are to hire, oversee, and review the superintendent and to establish policies. And if you go to state statute, it very explicitly says this is what you're supposed to do. So we have to keep that in mind. If you look at, we talked about the CREC report, the last one in 2015, which repeated much of what the previous two reports, one I think was in 2008, one was in 2012, and saying, this is what needs to be done and what needs to be changed, and much of that, not all, and as Brian Meek said, it's not perfect. Some of the changes that we went further is that the special education director, or the Director of Special Education Services, I guess is the title, is now a cabinet level position, which it had not been previously. So that means the special education person is now one of 6 senior people in the senior cabinet that report directly to the superintendent, which previously had not been the case. We implemented a number of changes, but there's still room for some improvement, obviously. I think for a board member, the key thing is to be aware of everything that's going on, to listen, to ask questions, and to stay informed. I know I've personally gotten involved, even though, as I said, we're not supposed to micromanage, but where people, something happened with their BCBA, or they missed some appointments, or certain things didn't happen, and sometimes, both parents work, they've got multiple kids, they don't really realize that suddenly 6 weeks has gone by and the child hasn't gotten the services they've gotten. So I have gotten involved periodically, although that really, I don't understate statute, that's not what board members are supposed to be doing. But I think at the end of the day, I've gone to the superintendent and complained, and ultimately, I think, as you heard Erica say, he's ultimately, or she is ultimately responsible. And he has said that when I have gone to him sometimes saying, why hasn't this been dealt with, whatever. He's like, hold me accountable. So I think that's my answer.
Thank you, Mike. For these questions, I am going to respond, read Sherelle's, but then anything after, obviously, I don't know what she would say. So to this question, Sherelle said, honestly, I would need to meet with the superintendent and director of special education to get their perspective and any needed support.